When people say Mario Brothers, they usually think of this. But really, they should be thinking of this. Created in 1983 by Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yokoi over at Nintendo, they made one of the most iconic arcade games ever made. At least one of them. They also made Donkey Kong. Don't forget Donkey Kong. But I love Mario Brothers. One of my favorite arcade games of all time. I think it's just a very simple game with a simple objective. And I know arcade games usually are simple games with simple objectives. But this one is just, they found a gameplay loop that was so fun and you wanted to go back and try again. You wanted to spend the quarters and try to beat every level. But yeah, it definitely, they hit gold with this for sure. And it was the birth of a juggernaut, right? Like I said, it is a spin-off of their other game, Donkey Kong, right? They made Donkey Kong, so then they took the character from Donkey Kong that you control, who was named Jumpman at the time, and instead of Jumpman, they changed his name to Mario. They named it after their landlord, Mario Segali, when Nintendo of America had offices that they had to pay rent for to this man. And I think that's a very funny correlation. I really wonder what the conversation was to just be like, oh, we should name our character after this guy. There's got to be more to it than that. But yeah, so they took Jumpman, turned him into Mario, gave him a brother, Luigi. This is technically, I think, Luigi's debut. And Mario Brothers Arcade was born, right? Like I said, it was made by Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yokoi, but Gunpei Yokoi was actually the one who suggested to Miyamoto that Mario shouldn't take damage when jumping down a far height, because that would happen in Donkey Kong and you would die. Initially, Miyamoto, he wasn't sure, but then they made a demo of sorts and Mario was jumping around and stuff, and ultimately he was happy with it, so they went that direction. Yokoi also came up with the idea to hit the enemies from under the platforms, and at first that was all it was going to be, but then they realized how easy that would have been, so then it turned into what we know today, which is hit the enemies from below, jump on top to kick them off the platform. So I think that was a good call, because yeah, it probably would have been too easy. And then we got Yukio Kanioka, who composed the soundtrack, if you could call it a soundtrack. It's more bleeps and bloops like an arcade game, but nonetheless, very iconic noises I think you'll recognize from anywhere. The only real piece of music is when the game starts, so there's that. Yeah, and also just for, just to be funny, this is the official debut of Mario being a plumber, because over in the Donkey Kong games, he was a carpenter. So there's that. I guess that's why there's pipes and, you're in the sewers. The whole plumber motif is there. So there we go. So what do you do in this game? Well, like I said, you do have to basically kill everything on screen to move on to the next level. There's all kinds of enemies that are in this game. There's 4 types, really. We got shell creepers, which will eventually be known as the Koopas. Side steppers, which are those damn crab enemies. Fighter flies, which are the flies. The flies that are very slow with BS patterns. I hate the way they jump. And then we got slip ice. Slip ice is those little icebergs that freeze entire platforms, and that makes running around more difficult because you're slipping all over the place. And I guess you could count the fireballs that also appear, but they aren't bound to the platforms. They just fire from left to right, sometimes all over the place, depending on if it's a red one or a green one. I believe the green ones go from left to right. And then finally, in later stages, the last enemy, I guess you could say, is the icicles that begin to form from the ceiling, and they hit the platforms and they freeze everything like slip ice does. So it's another form of slip ice, essentially. But yeah, so you got to get rid of everything on screen. You got to deal with all these threats. The game is phase-based, so, it's just phase 1, kill everything, and there's like 5 Koopas you got to flip over and kill. And then phase 2, phase 3. There are bonus phases every now and then where it's just collect all the coins. I believe there's 10 coins on the screen that you got to try to get everything, and you get bonus points for it. And in the game, apparently there are 99 phases, which, damn, I have a hard time believing that, because honestly, when I play this game, I think my best was like phase 25 or 24. Like, it gets tough, and I just don't know how people back in the day did 99 phases of this. That's insane. But there being 99 phases, the highest possible score a player can achieve is 999,990. So you can't hit a million in this game. So we talked about the enemies. We've talked about some of the, the fact that there are coins here. Funny enough, this is the first game in the Mario Brothers franchise, technically, right? And Koopas, the pipes, Luigi, and the spinning coins, those are the only elements that made it into Super Mario Brothers, the next game. I find that really funny because Super Mario Brothers, obviously the whole game changed because now it's a side-scrolling platformer, but like a lot of the enemies that were in the Mario Brothers arcade game stayed in the Mario Brothers arcade game. We never really saw like anything, we never saw Slip Ice or Fighter Flies. I don't think so, at least to an official capacity. I know we have maybe later down the line in like the 3D games, Fighter Flies may have made a comeback under a different name, or maybe they made a comeback in general, but it's not something memorable. Like Fighter Flies, you think of the Mario Brothers arcade game. So, but if you want to just talk directly from one game to another, not much of this game made it into its sequel and onward. So, I think that's pretty interesting. There's not much else they could have really taken, to be honest, other than the enemies. But like, I just find it interesting. Like even Mario's design kind of changed, right? Like, cause he had the blue overalls with the red. The red overalls with the blue shirt. And then in the next game, he is like wearing a brown shirt with the red overalls. So they changed that too. So yeah, it's interesting that they, decided to take just a few things from this game and blew them up because of course those elements just became Mario staples from there on out. There's also regarding gameplay, there's also a POW block that you get that you could hit up to 3 times, and that is like emergencies only. That is, you got enemies running around the screen, you're overwhelmed, you cannot possibly hope to get all this. The fireballs are now in place, so now that's making everything harder. So you hit this POW block and it'll flip everything over, right? It'll be like you jumped on everything once. So that is perfect. It's really a nice, in case of emergency, hit this. So then you go around, you make the most of it, and it should help you in your gameplay. In terms of like movement too, like it's very stiff, and that definitely adds to the challenge. The challenge isn't always, how many enemies can we throw on screen to like overwhelm the player. Like that's part of it for sure. But the other thing is like once you leave the ground, you can't fix yourself in midair. Like you are in that direction. So if you jumped and you realized there was a mistake and you're headed onto an enemy or something, you're done. You already realize you're done once you're in the air. Obviously in later Mario games, you could start controlling Mario in the midair, but in this game, it's like, no, once you leave the ground, your trajectory is set. You cannot change that. And same with like moving on the ground, like making a hard pivot to the other side, like it will take a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely, something I notice can be frustrating in the bonus levels when you have to collect all the coins because, you think you could just pivot from left to right very easily, but no, there's like this delay that like will probably mess up, where you were planning on jumping in the first place if you're not used to the mechanics. So there's definitely a challenge in the gameplay that like is on purpose, and it's very, very impressive because the fact that they made movement part of the challenge is like, that's just really cool game design to me. So yeah, I love playing this game. I play this every so often. I play it on so many things. This game, the availability that this game has, I will read a list, but damn, it's on damn near everything, pre-80s and even after that. But like, if we're just talking around that time, we're talking Atari 2600, Atari 5200, Atari 7800, Atari 8-bit. So damn, like Mario was on Atari quite a bit. PC-88, FM7, the Commodore 64, the NES, the Amstrad CPC, and the ZX Spectrum. Later, once the Game Boy Advance was on the market and we got all those Mario Advance games, every one of those was bundled with Mario Brothers Classic, and it was basically an updated version of this game included in every title, right? So the graphics looked better, and it just looked really pretty. It looked way better, and but it was the same game. So yeah, they really, they really see this as like a nice little bonus at this point. Like I think nowadays that is what this is. It's not like, you know, games have evolved so much, especially in 2024, that like you look at this and it's like, yeah, this is a good phone game. You know, like not even. This is a good little like mess around toy at this point. My experience with this, I first played the NES version, which was actually developed by Intelligent Systems. That was their debut in the industry. They would later go on to make, you know, absolute monsters like the games in the Fire Emblem series and the Paper Mario series. You know, and that's just to name a few, because they're huge. They make so much, and you know, they're a big asset for Nintendo nowadays. You could even, you know, right now, like in terms of like the best way to play this, I would just say get it on the Nintendo Switch. You can go on the eShop. It's part of their Arcade Archives branding, where it says that on the corner of all their little arcade games. And I think from $5 to $10, man, you could get this game and just, you know, have a hell of a time. And they do, you know, they make it, they have quality of life improvements, easy multiplayer to set up. You choose how many quarters you're gonna put in the game before you even start, so like that's your continues right there. It's really fun, and they have other modes and stuff. And you know, I love the Arcade Archives line of games. Like I try to get as many as I can, and you know, this will be the first one I'm talking about today, but I'm sure I'll cross this bridge again and talk about more arcade games. But yeah, Mario Brothers Arcade, man. Mario Brothers Arcade is still a good time in 2024. I highly recommend it. It is a nice little quick game if you just want to, you know, feel like you made the most of like 10 minutes. You have 10 minutes lying around, just put in Mario Brothers Arcade anywhere and you'll be satisfied by the time you die, because you will die. The game is hard as hell and you will die. Forget about Phase 99. Alright guys, thank you for checking out the channel. Thank you for checking out the video. Like and subscribe, that would be great. Hit the bell to get notifications on when videos drop here. And I appreciate everybody that comes by and watches the video and leaves a nice little, you know, comment, give me feedback, tell me what you thought, tell me what you hated, tell me what you liked. I take everything into consideration. So yeah, thank you guys. See you next time. Goodbye.